Hey, thank you so much for checking out our online experience. Here at Thrive Church, we exist to help people find and follow Jesus. If you'd like more information about us or what we do, you can visit us online at thrivechurchmi.com. So just sit back, relax, and we hope you enjoy this week's message.
Hey, so we are in our July series called Only God, and we're talking about the things that only God can do. We're talking about miracles. We're talking about what he's done in the past, what he's doing right in front of us. And I'm excited to be up here with you guys this morning. My name is Dave. I am our operations pastor, and I am also on the side a professional sparkler handler. It's a pretty unexciting gig, and if you're thinking that it's a lucrative business, it's not. So I don't recommend it. But here we are. We're here this morning. We're talking about only God and only God moments. Summers for me are crazy. Anyone else? Like, summer is going to be relaxing. It's going to be fun. It's going to be hammocks and pools and beaches. And nope. Especially if you have children, there's just no downtime. It doesn't stop. It's not just always going. One of the things that I often have in the summers is a lot of weddings. Which are fun for me. I enjoy weddings, whether I'm officiating the wedding or if I'm helping make the party happen, DJing it or something. Either way, I have a lot of fun with it. And I went to a wedding last summer. It was in the middle of nowhere. Just complete middle of nowhere. And I type in the directions into my maps on my phone. And I'm traveling. I have no idea where I am. Thankfully, Google's, just yelling at me, telling me what to do. Like it's supposed to do. And I get to this one spot, an intersection. It says, turn left. To my left, there's a large cornfield and a couple of cows. That was it. And I'm like, okay, I have no idea where to go. I felt completely comfortable, though. I grew up in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by cornfields. My brother was here this morning. He's been staying with us for the last week. And growing up, one of the things we did for fun, I don't know why, was we would go out into the middle of a cornfield and just get lost and try to find our way home. Other times, we would go out with the intention of just turning right back around, and my older brothers would run and leave me, and I would get unintentionally lost. Unintentionally lost. I didn't intend to get lost. They intended for me to get lost. But anyway, I felt completely comfortable because I'm like, oh, this is my home. This is where I belong. Except I had no idea where I was. Dead end, didn't know where to go, had to just kind of turn around and try things. Google said a road existed that clearly never, ever existed. And off we go. Have you ever run into a dead end? Driving, in life, any sort of dead end in your life at all, ever? Anyone? Yeah. Just me? Okay, a few of us. Sometimes those dead ends look like what I just described. You come up to the road, you see that sign. You know very clearly, all right, we're done here. Something new is about to happen. It's not going to be right here. Other times, a dead end might look like this. You're walking and all of a sudden, just stops. Have you seen those YouTube videos where people are on their phone and they just walk right into things? I love those because I've been that person several times. Other times, dead ends look a little bit more practical and a little more heart-wrenching. When you look on your phone, sign into your bank, and you see that. Okay, that's hard. Sometimes it's a vocation thing. You expect that I'm going to do this. This is my long-term goal, and all of a sudden it gets cut short, whether it's your choosing or someone else's choosing. Dead end. What do I do? Where do I go? Sometimes it's relationships. A marriage turns sour, and it's hard, and there's an end. Sometimes it's a friendship that just gets cut off, and we're not ready for it. We're not expecting it. Dead ends hit us all over the place. But one of the things that I love about dead ends is the fact that they're not the end. Sometimes they feel like the end. Sometimes it feels like you're hitting the impossible. The impossible's right in front of you. But this quote that I discovered this week is just amazing. Impossible is just an opinion. Sometimes it does not feel like an opinion. Sometimes it feels like this is it. This is the end of the world as we know it. It's the end. Somebody should write a song about that. That'd be a good one. Other times, it's just one of those, okay, God, something's got to happen. And he shows up immediately, and off you go. Other times, it is a long waiting game, trying to figure out what's going to come next. How do we do this? How do we move forward? And that's what we're going to talk about today, those dead-end moments. What do you do? How do you move forward? How do you just wait for God to show up? How do you ask God to show up? How do you see God show up? How do you get over yourself and let God show up? We're going to talk about those, because one of the things that God is known for is this statement: God makes paths through the impossible. He is known for that because he's done it over and over again in the stories that you'll read in the Bible. He's done it over and over again in my life. He's done it in your life, perhaps. Maybe you need him to do it in your life right now, and you have the opportunity right now to let him. God can make paths through the impossible, and God does make paths through the impossible. The Old Testament is the first part of the Bible and is filled with stories of God working just ridiculous miracles. The New Testament is also. But we're looking at some Old Testament stories through this series. And I had the opportunity this week to talk to some people who I know are just frankly not believers. They don't know God. They don't trust God. They don't know Jesus. They don't trust Jesus. And some of them used to be people of faith. Some of them never. And so I took the opportunity and I said, hey, they know I'm a pastor. And I said, this is what I'm teaching about this week. What do you think about this story? And we're going to talk about a story from Moses today. And I kind of recapped the story and they're like, yeah, nope, couldn't be true. It's too unbelievable for them for this to be true. And I looked at them and I said, yep, it is unbelievable. But that's the way God works. He does things that are so far beyond what we could do that they are only God moments. And I've seen them, I've experienced them, and my prayer is that they will someday too. And for you, I pray that for you as well, that you will see God work and you'll see these only God moments in your life. Let me just tell you a story of one of these miracles that I saw once. I had the opportunity for several years to work with college students in a campus ministry, and I would take students out on spring break mission trips, which are awesome. Mission trips are a lot of fun. You go away. One of the coolest things about mission trips that I love is the fact that you go away with the sole purpose of carving out time to be with God and to let God work. I love that. If only we would look at life like that all the time and just go, okay, God, show up, work. I'm here to serve you. It's incredible because your eyes are open, you're ready, you're alert, you're looking for God to do things. And so I took this team of people to Kansas City, Missouri. Not Kansas City, Kansas. Totally different. Other side of the border, different city. The barbecue's not as good. And so we're in Kansas City, and we had a day that was, it was pretty much a day off for us. And so I challenged my team. One person was just talking about the idea of, can God still speak to you? Does God still speak? And so I said, you know what we're going to do before we go tomorrow? We're going to go to the art museum. And I said, we're going to take some time. We're going to take 20 minutes, and I want you to sit down with a journal, and I want you to pray and ask God to tell you someone or something that you need to experience tomorrow. A person that you need to talk to, a conversation you need to have, something you need to see, experience something. And that, honestly, at that time, that was a little over a decade ago probably, was uncomfortable for me still. But I'm like, all right, if I'm going to challenge these students to do it, I better do it too. And so I sat down with this journal, and I prayed, and I said, God, what do you need me to see tomorrow? Who do you need me to talk to? What do you need me to say? And I sat there, and God said to me, this is crazy. He said, you're going to find a lot of money, and you're going to eat some ice cream. That's not at all what he said. But that would have been amazing. That's what I was hoping for. But all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, and I just felt like you're going to meet somebody named Linda, and there's going to be a dog. I'm like, well, that's not as cool as money and ice cream, but all right. And so the next morning, we went to this art museum, and we got there before it opened, and so there weren't a lot of people, and then people started filing in, and there's this big courtyard outside, and I went outside to hang out in the courtyard, because I'm like, if there's a dog, it's not going to be inside, so I'll go hang out outside. And so I sit on this bench, and some people come up and sit next to me. And I'm like, this is it. This is my moment. What's your name? And it was Tim and Karen. I'm like, well, I don't need to talk to you. I'm going to leave. No, I talked to them for a while. They were really nice people. It was a good conversation, just good people. And so I start walking around, and I don't see any lady by themselves. I don't see anyone with a dog. And then all of a sudden, these dogs run by. I'm like, okay, here we go. I don't know where they came from. I never saw an owner, just dogs. I'm like, well, that's weird. But maybe that's part of the story. And then all of a sudden, this lady comes jogging by with a dog. And I flagged her down because I'm like, this is my moment. I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove a point to these students that God still speaks. And I flagged her down. And I said, excuse me. I need to talk to you for a second. I said, my name is Dave. She's like, hi, my name's Linda. And I stopped for a second. I'm like, crap. Now I don't know what to say. And we just struck up a conversation. It was really awkward. It was really forced. And I'm like, I just feel like I'm supposed to talk to you. And she was like, okay. Totally creeped out by me, I'm sure. And we talked for a couple of seconds. There was not a whole lot of chemistry between Linda and I. And she's like, well, I'm going to start jogging again. And I'm like, well, hold on. I feel like I'm supposed to pray with you before you go. And she said, no, thanks. And she ran. And I thought, what in the world, God? Why would you tell me Linda and a dog, and then Linda and a dog are here, and then they go? I realize in hindsight, it was more for me than for her. I thought in that moment, okay, God, you need me to talk to Linda. I'm going to save her life. I'm going to introduce her to Jesus. This is going to be the most profound moment. What God really needed to show me was, hey, you just need to stop and listen and ask more. And he showed me that he still speaks, and it was incredible, and it was fun, but I did not get money and ice cream. Some of you know Old Testament stories. Some of you do not. Some of you have not read Old Testament stories in years and years and years. That's fine. Let's just all start together here, okay? I want to tell you a story about a guy named Moses. This is from the book of Exodus. It's the second book of the Bible. If you open it up, most people when they first get a Bible just open it up and start reading from the front, and it doesn't take long to start getting confused and to try to figure things out. And you get through Genesis, and you're like, okay. And you get into Exodus, and things start getting weird. And I'm just going to tell you a story of what happens in here. And when you learn the story of God, as you start uncovering what he's doing, things start clicking, things start making sense. And so I'm going to tell you a story that happens in Exodus chapter 14, give or take a chapter, because it kind of stretches out over a little bit of it, about a guy named Moses. And Moses hit a dead end. Moses was leading God's people, and he hit a dead end that looked like this. This is the most beautiful dead end that he could have ever possibly hit. Oh, that one. That's a beautiful dead end. If I get stuck there, I'm fine. Totally fine. In the moment, this is the Red Sea. This is where Moses and his people got stuck. Let me tell you what happened. The Israelite people were God's people. He set them apart. He said, you are my people. I'm going to do the work that I do through you. And Moses was their leader. The problem was they were in Egypt, and they were stuck in Egyptian slavery for years and years and years and years. And God said, I'm going to take you to a land I have for you. It's going to be an incredible land. It is the promised land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, it says, which does not sound as cool to me as if he said it was flowing with milk and cookies or anything more delicious than honey. But that's what he promised them. He said, I'm going to take you there. And Moses was going to be the guy to take them there. But they're stuck in slavery. They can't go anywhere. And so Moses petitions to Pharaoh, who was over the Egyptian people, time and time and time again, and says, we want out. Let us out. Free us. Pharaoh says no. He says no. He says no. He says no. Finally, God sends 10 plagues to Egypt. Each one of them a little bit bigger than the other one, showing his power, showing Pharaoh that God is in control. You need to let these people go. There's the plague of locusts. There were flies. There were boils. There was the plague of frogs, which that one doesn't really scare me. If there were a bunch of frogs jumping around, I would be like, neat. Like, scary, God. No, but that wasn't the point. Actually, I have another story for another day of how I ran over a frog with a lawnmower, but it makes a really good clunking noise, but it is not a fun picture at the end. Different story. Some of you are creeped out. Sorry, I went there. The last plague that God sent on the Egyptian people, I don't know why I went there, but I did. The last plague that God sent was the plague, what's called the plague of the firstborn, where the firstborn in every family was killed. And every family in Egypt was killed. The Israelite people were safe, they were protected, but even Pharaoh's son died. And that sent a huge message. And Pharaoh got scared, and he told the Egyptian people, or he told the Israelites, get out of here. Go. Get away from me. And so Moses leads his people. They're finally finding freedom, and he takes them, and they flee. They run quickly. And God leads them toward the promised land. Okay, but instead of taking like the road, there was a road that could lead them straight there. He put a cloud in front of them to guide them along the way. And at nighttime, that cloud became a pillar of fire to guide their path. And God stayed with them the whole way, leading them. And he led them right to the Dead Sea. And at the Dead Sea, God said, you need to camp out here, which was convenient because there were hookups for their RVs. You'll see them in the upper right corner. There's power and electric. No. But they camped out there. And all of a sudden, Pharaoh realizes, oh, shoot. We just let all of our help go. This isn't going to work. And he, it says, changed his mind, which is a polite way of saying got really upset that they all left. And so he decided, we're going to go after them. And so he gets all of 600 of his best chariots and all of the officers he can get, and then a bunch of other chariots, and they go after them, and they are going to take these people back. They're going to take them by storm. And so they start going, they're fleeing, they're finding the Israelite people. The problem is the Israelite people are stuck here. There's nowhere else to go. They're trapped, there's water, and they're surrounded now by the Egyptians. They needed God to show up. They needed God to show up. And what God did was just incredible. This cloud that was in front of them switched to being behind them. And it was in between them and the Egyptian people. And everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. God tells Moses, go up to the sea, raise your staff, and you'll walk across on dry ground. And the water splits. The Israelite people go across on dry land. Crazy. And then the Egyptian people follow behind, and they start coming in. And as soon as they get across, Moses raises his staff again. The waters come back over, and every one of the Egyptian people died in the water. Nuts. It was nuts. And afterwards, there was confetti. There were bounce houses. There was cotton candy. The land was flowing with milk and cookies. Well, eventually they got there. But it was just nuts. They saw something that only God could have done, and only God did. They needed him to show up, and he did. And it was just a completely miraculous story. Miraculous story. Now, in your life, if you've ever hit a point, or you're currently at a point where, God, I need you to show up because there's nowhere else to go. Can I tell you, first and foremost, you're not alone. Because every one of us hits those moments. Sometimes they're more significant than others. I'm working with a couple who has been waiting for over a year for God to show up and do something, and we're finally on the brink of seeing God move. And it's just, it takes time sometimes. Other times it's immediate. God shows up, and here you go. But one of the things I love about the story of Moses here is the way that he approaches the situation. It's not just, well, that got weird, that got rough, we're stuck. See you later. He had a system ready to go. And I want to share that with you, what I see in this. So when you encounter the impossible, when you see things that need an only God moment, here's what I want to encourage you to do. First one is this: stop. Stop the panic. Anyone else have a tendency to freak out when you lose control of what's going on in front of you? Like, I have a plan, I'm going to do this, all of a sudden that plan doesn't work. It's easy to freak out. I, in college, was that person a lot. I did way too much. I said yes to everything. I got really anxious. I got kind of depressed. I got overworked, underpaid, and unappreciated. And my wife really helped me a lot to go, okay, here's what you need to do. Just relax, calm down, and stop the panic. And this is exactly what Moses did in verses 1 through 3. He hits that point where they take this path to the sea instead of the path to the road, and they were trapped. He had to stop. He had to calm his people down. and let them know God's going to take care of you. God is going to lead you through this. So if that's you in your life, if it's your job, it's your finances, it's a relationship, it's whatever that's in front of you right now, can I encourage you first, just stop and calm it down a little and just breathe for a second. The second thing he does is stand. To stand still. Now, what I mean by this is what Moses did in that moment is pretty crazy. Let me read what happens. Because the Israelite people, when they see that they're surrounded, they're trapped at the sea, they literally said this: "What have you done? Better to let us serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." The guy who just led them out of slavery, they're now trapped, and they're yelling at him, going, "Hey, you jerk. We were better there. We were better there." And Moses could have responded poorly. He could have responded in any way possible. What he turns around and says is this: "The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still." AKA, just shut up and let God do what only God can do. Just let him do what he does. Let God do what only God can do. Stand still. Stop freaking out. Stop the panic. Just find the peace in the moment and go, "Okay, God, I clearly have no control. Thanks for the reminder. Would you please show up? I need you to show up." Then the next thing he does, as it goes on into verse 16, the third one is this: look. Stop, stand, look. Look for the path. In front of them, there was no path. They needed God to show up. They needed God to do something, and he did. Sometimes when you stop and stand and you can kind of clear the clutter away, the path shows up pretty quickly. Other times it takes a lot of time, and sometimes it does not show up until God acts. At the right time, in the right moment, he will, and he always does. Verse 16 says this. God's talking to Moses. He says, "Raise your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry land." That makes no sense until God acted. If you're standing in front of the water and God says, "Go across it on the dry land," it's like, sure, God. Neat. Like, that's, no. And then God creates this path, and they go. He says, "Get ready. Here we go. Look for the path." Sometimes that's all it takes, is just going, "Okay, God, where do I need to go?" There. Okay, let's go. And God will show you that. Some of you know Dr. Tom. Dr. Tom was a part of our staff for a while. He's now at a different church, pastoring another church. And Dr. Tom was talking about this subject, and he said a really, really profound thought that has kind of wrecked me a little bit. He said, "Impossible is often just a lack of determination." Sometimes it's really not that impossible. We just freak out so much that we lose the ability to see what's in front of us. Other times, we just need to be so determined in our faith to go, "Okay, God, you are going to work. It's time." And let God move in his time, in his plan, according to his will, how he wants to do it. Trust God and let him lead you. Now, the second half of the Bible is called the New Testament. If you're not familiar with that, the first book of it is the book of Matthew, conveniently written by a man named Matthew. And Matthew records part of his experience with Jesus as a disciple, as a follower. He writes this. This is a story about Jesus and what Jesus says. This is from Matthew 17. "At the foot of a mountain, a large crowd was waiting for them. A man came and knelt before Jesus and said, 'Lord, have mercy on my son. He has seizures and suffers terribly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. So I brought him to your disciples, but they couldn't heal him.' Jesus turns to his disciples and he says, 'You faithless and corrupt people, how long must I be with you? How long must I put up with you?'" AKA, you guys are a bunch of idiots. Keep going. "Bring the boy to me." Jesus rebuked the demon in the boy, and it left him. From that moment, the boy was well. Afterwards, the disciples asked Jesus privately, "Why couldn't we cast out that demon?" "You don't have enough faith," Jesus told them. "I tell you the truth, if you had the faith even as small as a mustard seed, you could say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it would move. Nothing would be impossible." If you look at that, if you found in your life I've asked for miracles and I haven't seen them. Or you're in a place where you're like, I doubt that this is even real or even possible. Can I just tell you, you're in good company. It is common nature, it is human nature to doubt what God can do and to doubt that he's in control and to assume that we are in control. But if I could encourage you in anything today, I want to encourage you to take a step out and go, okay, God, I can't do this. I need you. Would you show up? Would you meet me here? Would you do something that I can't do? Would you show me an only God moment in my life right now? I don't know what that is for you. It could be something that seems minor and insignificant. It could be something that is so heavily stacked against you that you literally can't do anything until God shows up. Ask God. Ask God. I want to tell you a story. One of the things that my wife and I did when we bought our house in Shepherd was we went in the house and we prayed over every room in our house before we moved in. And we prayed for our family. We prayed for our guests who would come in. We prayed for the life that we would have in there, how we would raise our kids. It was just a great time that my wife and I had in there. And one of the things we were warned about before we bought a house in the village was, hey, there's a bunch of big maple trees. If you've ever driven through Shepherd, you know that. A lot of big maple trees, which are beautiful and so much fun, but they are very old and they're very brittle. And when big storms come, branches have a tendency to do that. And we had just tons of them over top of the house. And so we were like, okay, well, here's our moment. We're going to, God, just kind of casually, I threw out, God, never let a branch fall on our house. And we kind of kept moving. And I cannot tell you the number of times that branches have fallen in front of our house that should have fallen on our house. And one day, my wife called me and she's like, hey, we're over at the neighbor's house. There's a huge branch that just took out the entire power line in front of our house. It's stuck, like it had fallen and stuck in the yard. It fell with so much strength, a big old monster of a branch. And I got home and I looked at it and it was literally over half of the house where it should have fallen. If you look at where the branch fell from, it should have fallen straight on our house. And it was another one of those reminders where I'm like, okay, God, you hear even the most insignificant of prayers. You listen, you respond. And so if you need an insignificant thing, ask for it. If you need a huge thing, ask for it. God is for you, and he wants to work only God stories in your life. Right now, we're working on a building fund that honestly sometimes seems like this can only be an only God thing. Because it can only be an only God thing. It has to be an only God thing. It's the only way it's going to work. But I looked this morning and we're at about $115,000, which is incredible. Yeah, absolutely. And that is an only God thing. And then I look ahead to what's still to come and what's still to raise. And I'm like, okay, God, this is only you. And so I am fully expecting God to show up in an only God way. I have no idea how it's going to happen. But I know that in the right time, God will do the right things and bring the right people and the right funds and the right whatevers into the place. And this is going to happen for his glory. It's going to be an only God thing. It's pretty cool. And so if you have something in your life where you need the water to part, you have a water parting, only God situation, I want to pray with you and I want to pray for you. And if you don't have that now, know that one is coming. It's going to happen. But I want everybody, would you just take a second? Would you pull out your Connect card? If you grabbed one on the way in, the little green Connect cards. And I want you to take a second and whatever that is in front of you right now, whatever only God thing you need, I want to personally pray with you and for you for that this week. So would you write that down? Throw your name on it so I know who in the world I'm praying for. And I want to pray with you for those only God moments to show up in your life. If it seems small, don't feel like it's too small. If it feels big, don't feel like it's too big. God is fully able to handle the small and the big. If we have the faith to step out and go, okay, God, this is you. This is not me anymore. I trust you. Show me the path. Let's go. And so I'm going to invite Emma back up because she's awesome. And I also want to do another thing with all of us while we're all still here in this room. I want to pray for our students heading to Big Stuff Summer Camp because Big Stuff leaves today. Today. Yeah. You're not excited, are you?
I'm so excited.
So excited. Okay, so what time do you guys leave?
7.
You don't sound confident in that.
I'm not.
So they leave around 7 tonight. We've got about 50 students and leaders who are traveling down to Big Stuff, Panama City Beach. It's just an incredible week of camp together where there'll be worship. There will be super, super good teachers there. Yeah. Super good. They're going to be on the beach, which sounds awesome. And they're going to have just a great experience together, growing and learning and asking questions and digging into some stuff together. And so if you're okay with it, Emma, and if you're okay with it, let's pray for Emma and the kids who are going. Does that sound cool? Yeah. Good, because whether or not you wanted it, I'm going to. God, we thank you for all those students and all the leaders who are heading down to Big Stuff this week. God, we pray that you would bless them in unbelievable ways, that you would show yourself to them through the teaching, through the worship, through the interactions they have with each other and with other kids down there. God, I pray for the leaders that you anoint the words that they share with these students. I pray for the students that they would hear your words clearly, and that they would find you and they would see you in everything this week. And so we ask your blessing over this trip, protection as they travel, joy in their times together. And we pray for only God moments to show up this week at Big Stuff. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.